Hello everybody, I'm David Winsness and I love to talk about myself. So here we go. I'm to talk to you about cellulosic fuels and a little bit about myself. And Kevin asked me when the last time I did a presentation about renewable fuels was, and it was before I had to wear these, which hasn't been very long. But anyway, I'm the Chief Technology Officer, and I come from several generations of power and energy. My grandfather's on the top picture there, and a farm in North Dakota, family farm in North Dakota. The farm was 2 miles long, half-mile wide, and they started out with horses. Can you just imagine? I don't even like to go for a 4-mile walk, let alone behind a horse and a plow, 2 miles that way, 2 miles back, and then you're making that last turn, like, one more? But anyway, then they went to the steam tractor there. He went on to college, North Dakota State, got an electrical engineering degree, on to GE, and he spent his entire career at General Electric, got some patents, mostly in the electrical field. That's what he does. And my dad kind of followed his suit. My dad went to Georgia Tech, and he started with GE as well, right out of college. He went through Cincinnati first with their jet engine division. Then he ended up with power systems, so steam turbines in Schenectady and gas turbines in Greenville. So I come from that heritage of energy and agriculture. And oddly, that's where I am today, agriculture and energy. But I started out, I went to Clemson University, mechanical engineer. I interned at GE. And I was lucky to work on the first serial number 1 7F. It was their 250 megawatt gas turbine, the most successful turbine they ever sold. It carried GE for 4 years, that unit. Jack Welch would come down to the plant and tell that one facility, you are carrying us. The demand, they got up to 350 units, 1 per day. It was just amazing. But I was on serial number 1 and I had a very big contribution. When I got there for my internship, they had dropped the first 2 rotors that were supposed to go into serial number 1, dropped them. So I was in charge. They put me in the lift program to try to figure out, we can't drop any more of these things. This is too expensive. And I came up with a very quick solution to fix that. And that was a big day for me. It was exciting. So they gave me more responsibility. But after GE, I went into machinery sales. I really wanted to I didn't want to be locked into one place all the time. I wanted to go see more places. So when I was going through my interviews out of college, there was a sales job. He's like, you get to call on everybody. Your territory is going to be every industry, every power company, every chemical company, every food company in Maryland and Delaware. As a sales engineer, you go design equipment, sell the equipment. So I took that job for about 12 years. And I learned that if I just sold a pump or a device, I was competing with everybody that was just selling a pump or device. But as soon as I put a control panel on it, or anything that made it a system, I eliminated competition, I got greater margins. And I just continued to evolve that. Selling systems was much better than just selling components. And that's evolved to what we are today. But along that line, I came across the corn ethanol industry. And the corn ethanol industry was brand new. This is 2002, 2003, brand new. And that excited me because, Congress mandated by law that 10% of our fuels would come from renewable fuels. So you're going from 0 to 10% instantly, very quickly. So there's probably a lot of innovation that still needs to be done there. Get in early, see if you can make some pioneering changes as opposed to getting in at the end when everything's polished, right? So I got in early, came up with an idea to take the waste stream from corn ethanol and extract corn oil. And it worked. We came up with a process that worked. It was inexpensive. And then how do I roll this thing out? So I met a guy, Kevin Chrysler, along the way. And I went to Kevin. I'd been talking about innovations and projects for about 3 years. Since 2002 we met. Went back to him in 2004 or 5 and said, hey man, I need an investor. I need some help with the business side. We've got a process. He said, what do you got? So let's go. So we went to South Dakota. I showed him a running prototype. We didn't even get all the way to the machine before he said, I'm in. Like, all right, my wife's gonna be happy because the credit cards are maxed out. Took everything I had to get this far. So we did that. That innovation is the single largest innovation to ever occur in renewable fuels. There isn't even a second place. It's nothing on the same scale. It creates $5 billion a year of value today. Every corn ethanol plant has adopted it. If you don't run that system today, you are out of business. $5 billion a year. The corn ethanol industry consumes 5 billion bushels of corn a year. So $1 per bushel in value. Complete insanity. We took it out of a byproduct that at the time was worth $70 a ton. But if you separate the oil out of the, when the oil's in the byproduct, $70 a ton. When you take the oil out, that oil today is $1,700 a ton. Huge impact to economics for that industry. They often admit they will not survive without that innovation. So that was corn ethanol. The other thing that it did, as soon as we invented it and deployed it and proved that we could commercialize it, we changed the renewable fuel standard. So this is the renewable fuel standard. It was first adopted by Congress in 2004. It was revised slightly in 2007, and it hasn't changed. And so the green curve on the bottom is corn ethanol. That's the easy one. That's moonshine. That's easy to do. So he said, we're going to get going very rapidly with corn ethanol. The next little sliver, the orange layer, is biodiesel. That's what we affected. Biodiesel is made from animal fats and vegetable oil. When we turn that system on, I get a call from the USDA. Hey, we heard you getting corn. We weren't expecting another feedstock for biodiesel. How much can you do if you deploy across the industry? 5 to 700 million gallons. Within weeks, they changed the standard. They increased the mandate by 500 million gallons because of a phone call. And they said, look, we expected this. When we started the renewable fuel standard, we expected there would be innovations and we would have to shift the curve. And thank goodness you came along, because they had a lot of other disasters, but they loved it. So we increased the mandate by 25% in that category. The next category above that is what we're working on today. The light blue category. That is also mandated by law from Congress, 16 billion gallons. The green area is 15. The orange area is 2.4 billion gallons. And the light blue area is 16 billion. We're making all of our corn ethanol today. We're making all of our biodiesel today. We're not making a single gallon. And there's a scale on the bottom. It talks about years, from 2009 to 22. Right? We're in 2022, and that light blue shade does not exist. And when they put the standard together in 2004 and 7, they admitted it this year. They finally admitted it. Look, when we got this thing going, we only cared about corn ethanol and biodiesel because those feedstocks existed, ready to go. And we figured we had some time, 2015, before we really had to figure out what to do with cellulosic fuels. Well, they haven't done anything. It's 2022, and we're supposed to be at our peak. So they actually wrote in December of 21 saying, hey, we need comments. We're going to tweak the standard. We think we have too many restrictions on the standard to adopt this type of fuel. What do you think? Comments were due February 4th. We commented. Big Oil commented. All the renewable fuel producers commented. Everybody supported what the EPA was asking. And never, ever, in my 20-some years in renewable fuels, did Big Oil come in with full support of this new standard. The new standard is to adopt biointermediates. What are biointermediates? The short version is intermediate, right? The way the law is written for renewable fuels is you have to start from the feedstock and go all the way to finished fuel on one piece of property. You can't do a partial conversion, let's say converting the wood into bio-oil, and send that oil to an oil refinery and let them use the resources they have. That is against the law. You don't get credit. Ridiculous, right? So this one said, hey, what are your comments? And the oil's like, yes, we want that. Send us the bio oil, right? And we love that because that's what we're making here at Comstock. So we changed the orange curve. We're definitely going to change the blue curve. So what is our process? This is a slide that Corrado had up as well. Maybe didn't have the text on it. But we start with woody biomass. And just like with corn oil, we separate the oil and process it separately into fuel. Trying to take the whole waste stream that corn oil was in and make fuel out of that is not possible. Separate the feedstock into molecularly consistent materials and convert those. So what do? We take the wood and we separate the cellulose. What's cellulose? It's on your desk there. It's paper. Cellulose. Cellulose is a glucan molecule. Starch in corn is a glucan molecule. They convert into, guess what? Glucose. Very easily, generally. Corn starch converts very easily. Woody biomass, the cellulose, does not. And it's because the tree is a badass. The tree does not want to give up, right? The tree has an armor. There are microbes, and millions of microbes as you're walking through your lawn in the grass, and they want to eat. And they want to eat biomass. So a tree wouldn't last very long if it was susceptible to attack. So it has built-in armor. This lignin that was on Corrado's slide, that lignin is the armor. And our predecessors in this space, they've always focused on trying to create an exotic enzyme that'll eat through the armor to get to the cellulose. And they've been working so hard to come up with these exotic enzymes that don't exist in the soil. We need to make a turbocharged enzyme. We just said, let's take off the armor. So that's what our process does, is we take off the armor. That's the Bioleum. You take off the armor and the process is very easy. So we have the process to make the ethanol from the sugar, from the cellulose, and now we're left with the heavy oil as a crude oil replacement, our Bioleum. So like it says, for every 1 ton of biomass we process, we get about 75 tons of ethanol and 75 gallons of ethanol, thank you, to about 20 or 40 gallons of Bioleum fuels. So roughly 100 gallons of fuel from every ton of biomass. What does that mean? Dollars. How does woody biomass compare to crude oil? How does it compare to corn? How does it compare to vegetable oils that are going to biodiesel like corn oil? Here's the cost comparison. We get 75 gallons, and woody biomass is $75 a ton. That's $1 a gallon. Our feedstock cost is $1 a gallon. Bioleum just gets it below $1 because we're going to get 100 gallons for every ton. Some of this biomass is cheaper. Some of it's sawdust. They can't get rid of it, 20 bucks. Some of it's maybe a little more expensive, but on average, it's, at the stump, harvesting trees from Landon's farm in Illinois. It's 25 bucks a ton at the stump is what trees are, right? So that's a very fair price. He might try to ask for more when it's time to harvest. That's a fair price, but we're still at $1. Corn, $7.80 a bushel today. You get 2.9 gallons for every bushel. $2.69 is your feedstock. That's not your conversion cost, it's your feedstock cost. Crude oil, $110 a barrel. You get about a 75% yield into fuel. $3.44 a gallon feedstock cost. Vegetable oil, my corn oil, $1,700 a ton, $6 a gallon. Big Oil is building plants to convert that right now. Why? Why are they going after the most expensive feedstock? Holly Frontier, Shell, Valero, building monster plants to convert vegetable oil into diesel. And it's because of the renewable fuel standard. And they're making a lot of money. And that's, when they voted yes to biointermediates, that's the kind of intermediate they're talking about. They're voting yes to $6 a gallon, and they're building facilities to do it. What if we could deliver a less expensive feedstock, one that comes from $1 a gallon material? Think they'd get excited? We think so. And then Corrado, I want to make a comment. Corrado made a comment that some of you that don't believe in greenhouse gas emissions may want to sell your stock after today. And I'm thinking, no, you won't. It doesn't matter if you believe CO2 emissions are rising. You see $1 per gallon fuel. You're in here because you're an investor. And there's an advantage right there. $1 over $2.69. So we want those investors too. So we have a huge feedstock cost advantage. Sustainable. If you look at the price at the stump for 50 years, it hasn't changed. If you look at the price of corn, over 10. Look at the price of oil, over 10. Price of vegetable oil, over 10. It's crazy. Greenhouse gas comparison. Well, crude oil is the baseline, right? So it's creating greenhouse gases. You're pulling carbon from under the ground, you're burning it, now it's CO2. There's new CO2 here that didn't exist yesterday because the carbon was under the ground yesterday. As soon as you get it up here, you burn it, we've just increased the mass of CO2. It's simple math. Wasn't here yesterday, it's here today. So that's the baseline that we're comparing to. Corn isn't that green. When they did this program in 2004, it was to reduce dependence on foreign oil, not to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It was a reduce dependence. We don't really have that issue today. Some of the first corn ethanol plants were running on coal. 2004, 2006, coal-fired plants. They weren't reduction. So on average, they're about 20% better. Vegetable oil is about 40 to 60% better. And you can look at the renewable fuel standard and they categorize. On that curve I showed, it shows, the percent better it has to be in a certain category. Cellulosic fuels, we have to be 60% better. We can't run on coal and be 60% better. So we have to, in order to meet the standard for cellulosic, we have to be at least 60% better. But my graph says we're 100 to 150% better. Come on, man, how do you get to be 150% better? We're going to go back to 4th grade. Photosynthesis. Plants, CO2 comes to a plant. Oxygen gets released, carbon stays in the plant. So let's just, and roughly it's CO2. Carbon's a little lighter than oxygen, but let's just say carbon, 2 molecules of oxygen, 1 molecule of carbon. Let's just say we have 30 tons of CO2. Come to that plant, we release 20 tons of oxygen, and we just put 10 tons of carbon into the plant. 40% of a tree are roots. We just put 40% of that carbon into the ground. So when we harvest the 6 and we convert it to fuel and we burn it, now we're at 18. We put out 18 tons of CO2. We started with 30. That's how you end up to be carbon negative. We always say carbon neutral or carbon zero because it just sounds weird when you say carbon negative. But that's what we are. This is the curve Corrado showed. The green lines didn't exist in the original curve. This is what we're going to disrupt. Just like we did with vegetable oil, corn oil, and ethanol, we changed the curves. We're going to change this curve. The oil companies are already begging. They want these biointermediates. What if we can give them an affordable one that's sustainable? Our wells don't run dry. Landon's just going to plant more trees when we harvest. This is a sustainable pathway. It's profitable. Everybody's saying, oh, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, it's going to cost us $1 trillion. No, it's not. It's going to save money. We can do it for less. We can do it sustainably. We don't have to dig deeper in all these exotic drills. It's right here. So I just hit those. We've got the lowest cost feedstock. We've proved our methods in Wisconsin at the same lab. We've proven our methods to make the ethanol. We've proven our ability to make Bioleum. our version of crude oil. We have a commercial plant now, and we're expanding it in Wisconsin. We're adding some more features, but we've already done it. We're just going to make it go faster because we have a CEO that really is into throughput. So we're going to make it bigger, faster. And we're looking at sites. I think that's it.